Hello, my dear friends. Today, I want to tell you a story that is very close to my heart. It is a story of love, pain, and understanding. Please listen to it completely because it may touch your heart and make you think deeply about love and life. I never thought that one day I would feel like a stranger in my own marriage. I loved my husband with all my heart, but there was something that always stood between us: his past love, his ex. When we got married, I believed that love was enough. I believed that my love would fill every empty space in his heart. But I was wrong. There was a part of him that still belonged to someone else. At first, I ignored it. I told myself, it's okay. Everyone has a past. It doesn't mean he loves me any less. But deep inside, I could feel it. I could feel the way his eyes sometimes looked far away, as if searching for something or someone. One day, I found an old letter in his drawer. It was hidden under his clothes. My hands shook as I opened it. The letter was from her. It was old, the paper slightly yellow, but the words were still clear. I will always love you, no matter where life takes us. My heart will always remember you. My heart broke. I sat on the floor, holding that letter, and tears rolled down my cheeks. Was I just a second choice? Was I the one trying to fix a heart that still belonged to someone else? That night, I couldn't sleep. My husband noticed something was wrong. He touched my hand gently and asked, "Are you okay?" I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask, "Do you still love her?" But instead, I just shook my head and said, "I'm fine." Days passed, but the pain in my heart only grew stronger. I started noticing small things. The way he smiled when her name was mentioned. The way he kept an old picture of her in his wallet. The way he sometimes sighed deeply, lost in thoughts I could never reach. One evening, I finally gathered the courage to ask him, "Do you still love her?" My voice was soft, almost shaking. He looked at me, surprised. For a moment, he didn't speak. Then, he took a deep breath and said, "She was my first love. A part of me will always care for her." My heart stopped. He didn't deny it. He didn't say no. Tears filled my eyes. And me. I whispered, "Do you love me?" He took my hands in his. "I love you. I chose you. But love is not something that disappears. You don't forget people who once meant the world to you." His words hurt, but they also made me think. Could I be angry at him for having a heart that remembers? Could I blame him for feelings he couldn't control? That night, I lay awake, thinking about love. Love is not a switch we can turn on and off. Love is a journey. Some people walk with us forever, and some only for a short time. But every love leaves a mark. I realized something important. Just because he remembered her, it didn't mean he didn't love me. Just because his heart had known another love before me, it didn't mean I wasn't special The next morning, I made a decision. I would stop competing with a memory. I would stop feeling like I had to erase his past to be his present. Instead, I would love him fully. I would create new memories so strong, so beautiful, that the past would no longer feel like a shadow between. US days turned into weeks, weeks into months. I started noticing something different. His eyes no longer looked distant. His smiles became warmer. His touch became softer. One evening, as we sat watching the sunset, he turned to me and said, "Thank you." "For what?" I asked. "For loving me, even when I didn't know how to let go of my past. For staying, even when it was hard." Tears filled my eyes. Love is not always easy. It is not always perfect. But real love is patient. Real love understands. And that night, as I lay in his arms, I knew he was mine, not because he forgot his past, but because he chose me in his present. Life is not a fairy tale. Love is not always like the movies. But sometimes, when you truly open your heart, something magical happens. After that night, something changed between us. My husband started being more present, more affectionate. Maybe he had always loved me, but now I could feel it, not just in his words, but in his actions. One day, while cleaning our room, I found the old letter again, the same letter from his ex. My fingers trembled as I held it, but this time, I didn't cry. I didn't feel broken. Instead, I walked to my husband and placed it in his hands. "You should decide what to do with this," I said softly. He looked at me, then at the letter. I saw something in his eyes, understanding, maybe even guilt. He took a deep breath and, without a second thought, he tore it into pieces. "I don't need it anymore," he said. "You are my present. You are my future." I smiled, and for the first time, I felt truly free. But love always tests us. One afternoon, when I was at home alone, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Hello?" I answered. A soft voice spoke. "Is this his wife?" I froze. I knew that voice. I had never spoken to her before, but somehow I knew. "Yes," I whispered, and she took a deep breath. "I'm sorry for calling you. I needed to hear your voice." My heart pounded. "Why?" There was silence for a moment, and then she spoke again. "Because I need to let go." I closed my eyes, understanding her pain. She wasn't calling to take him back. She was calling to say goodbye. "I loved him," she admitted, her voice trembling. "But I see now. He's yours, and I need to move on." I felt a strange emotion, sympathy. She wasn't my enemy. She was just a woman, like me, who had loved and lost. "Thank you," I whispered. She let out a small laugh, filled with tears. "Take care of him. He's a good man. I promised. And with that, she hung up. When my husband came home that evening, I didn't tell him about the call. I didn't need to, because I finally understood love is not about winning or losing. It's about choosing every single day. That night, as he held me close, I realized something beautiful. Love is not about erasing the past. It's about creating a future so strong that the past becomes just a distant memory. So to everyone listening, if you ever feel like you are competing with someone's past, remember this. Love is not a battle. Love is not a war. Love is a choice. And if someone chooses you, truly chooses you, then you have already won. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. My heart, once filled with doubts, was now calm. I had found peace not because I had erased my husband's past, but because I had learned to live with it, to accept that love is not about who came first, but about who stays. One evening, as we sat on our balcony watching the sky turn golden, he held my hand and said something that made my heart stop. I want to take you somewhere tomorrow. Where? I asked, curious. He just smiled. It's a surprise. The next day, he drove me to a beautiful place, a quiet, peaceful garden filled with flowers. As we walked, he finally spoke. This is where I met her for the last time, he admitted. I felt my breath catch, but I stayed quiet, listening. It was the day we said goodbye, he continued. Back then, I thought I would never love again. I thought she was my forever. But life had other plans. He turned to me, his eyes filled with emotion. And now, standing here with you, I know that love is not about holding on to the past. It's about opening your heart to what's in front of you. I felt tears in my eyes, not because of pain, but because of the beauty of that moment. Why did you bring me here? I asked, my voice soft. Because I wanted to show you that I have truly moved on. He said, I wanted you to see that this place, which once held my sadness, now holds something new, our love. And then, he did something I never expected. He took a small note from his pocket, scribbled something on it, and placed it under a rock near the flowers. What did you write? I asked. He smiled. Goodbye. And just like that, I knew his heart was finally, truly mine. I hugged him tightly, and at that moment, I felt something shift inside me. The past no longer scared me. The ghost of his ex no longer haunted me, because I had won not by forcing him to forget, but by loving him so deeply that the past no longer mattered. As we walked back to the car, hand in hand, I realized something beautiful. Love is not about being someone's first. It's about being someone's last. To everyone listening, if you ever feel like you are competing with someone's past, don't. Love is not a race. It's not about who was there before you. It's about who chooses to stay, who chooses to build a future with you. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched your heart, please like and subscribe. Your support means the world to me, and I promise to bring you more beautiful, deep, and emotional stories. As we drove home that evening, a quiet peace settled between us. The kind of peace that comes when you no longer have to fight battles in your mind. I looked over at him, this man who had once been a mystery to me, someone I had tried so hard to understand. And now, I did. I reached for his hand, and he squeezed mine gently. It was a small gesture, but it held so much meaning. Love doesn't always need grand words or dramatic moments. Sometimes, love is in the simple things, the way someone holds your hand, the way they look at you, the way they choose you, over and over again. That night, as I lay in bed, my thoughts drifted to the woman who had once held his heart. I didn't hate her. How could I? She had been a part of his journey, and in some way, she had led him to me. I whispered a silent thank you, not because I was glad she was gone, but because I was grateful for the lessons love had taught me. But life, as always, had more lessons to teach. A few months later, something happened that tested everything I had learned. One afternoon, my husband came home looking different. His eyes were heavy, his shoulders tense. I knew something was wrong. What happened? I asked, placing my hand on his arm. He sighed, rubbing his face. She's in the hospital. I didn't need to ask who. I already knew. She had an accident, he continued. She's not in critical condition. But I don't know. I feel like I should go see her. A strange feeling settled in my chest. A year ago, I would have felt threatened, insecure. I would have let my fears take over. But now, I just nodded, double quotes, then go. I said softly. He looked at me, surprised. Are you sure? I smiled gently. Yes. If it were me in the hospital, I'd want someone who once loved me to visit. Love doesn't disappear just because life changes. Go. And if you need me, I'm here. He stared at me for a moment, then pulled me into his arms. I don't deserve you, he whispered. I hugged him back, smiling against his chest. You do. And so, he went. I won't lie, while he was gone, I felt a tiny ache in my heart. But it wasn't jealousy. It was something different. It was the realization that love is not about possession. Love is about trust, about giving people the space to be human. When he returned home that evening, he looked tired, but his eyes held a deep emotion. She's okay, he said. She'll be fine. I nodded, waiting. He sat beside me, taking my hands in his. Seeing her today, it made me realize something. What? I whispered. That love changes, he said. That the love I had for her is not the same love I have for you. What we had, It was young. It was beautiful. But it wasn't meant to last. He paused, brushing his fingers along my cheek. You are my forever. A tear slipped down my face. But this time, it wasn't from pain. It was from the overwhelming feeling of being truly chosen. And in that moment, I knew I had never lost. I had always been enough. Love is not about erasing the past. It's about building a future so strong that the past becomes a chapter, not the whole story. To everyone listening, if you ever doubt your place in someone's life, remember this. The past is a part of them, but you are their present, their future. And love is not about who was there first, it's about who stays, who fights for you, who chooses you every single day. As the days passed, I found myself thinking about everything that had happened. The woman who once held my husband's heart had become a lesson, not a threat. She was not my enemy, nor was she a ghost haunting our marriage. She was simply a part of his past. And I had finally learned that love is not about winning, it's about understanding. One evening, as we sat together on the couch, my husband took my hand in his and looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. It was a mix of gratitude, admiration, and something deeper, something that made my heart feel warm. You know, he said softly, there was a time when I thought love was about never letting go, but now I realize real love is about choosing over and over again. And I choose you. Tears welled in my eyes, not because I was sad, but because I felt seen, truly, deeply seen. Do you regret anything? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He shook his head. No, because every step, every moment, every heartbreak led me to you. I leaned into his embrace, feeling the safest I had ever felt. And then, something happened that I never expected. One afternoon, while I was at a cafe, my phone rang. I looked at the screen, and my heart skipped a beat. It was her. For a moment, I hesitated. Should I answer? Should I ignore it? But then, something inside me told me to pick up. Hello, I said cautiously. Hi, she said, her voice soft. I hope I'm not disturbing you. I took a deep breath. No, it's okay. How are you? There was a pause before she spoke again. I just wanted to thank you. I blinked in surprise. For what? For loving him, she said. For understanding him in a way that maybe I never could. A lump formed in my throat. You don't have to say that. But I do, she insisted. I see it now why he chose you. Why he loves you the way he does. And I wanted you to know that I respect that. I closed my eyes, feeling a mix of emotions: relief, gratitude, peace. Thank you, I whispered. There was another pause. Then she let out a small laugh. I think I'm finally ready to move on now. And just like that, a weight lifted. That night, I told my husband about the call. He listened carefully, then smiled and pulled me into his arms. "You are an incredible woman," he said. I laughed, wiping away a stray tear. "Why? Because you taught me what real love looks like." At that moment, I realized something beautiful. Love is not a battle. It's not about holding onto someone so tightly that they can't breathe. Love is about giving. Love is about trusting. Love is about letting go of fear. To everyone listening, if you ever feel like love is slipping away, don't be afraid. If it's real, it will always find a way to stay. And if you are chosen, truly chosen, then there's no competition because you are the one. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched your heart, please like and subscribe. Your support means the world to me, and I promise to bring you more beautiful, deep, and emotional stories.